the person I met during my youth service that was a pastor.
Was it Michael?
I used wrong names anyway. I don't even know his name in the story, but so picture that now for a child of God.
Okay.
Because I totally now understand the import of what happened.
But let's get something clear.
Okay.
As at the time, you were not born
again. And I wasn't born again at all. I was doing my youth service and having a lot of fun. And that's what I came to just to do, to enjoy.
To enjoy.
Do you understand?
I want to ask, who is Nkili? Who is Nkili in the book? That's true. Remember, that's true.
That's true.
It was really something, I don't know if I should
maybe you can talk about it. Okay, you brought it up.
Hello, you're welcome to Let's Talk with Chisom. Today we have a beautiful guest in the house. She's a cutting-edge, creative, and vastly talented multipreneur. She's a consultant, she's a HR person, she's an actor. A lot of people don't know that you're an actor.
I didn't even know that you knew that.
She's an actor and you acted Fortune.
Yes, I was in Fortune.
Yes. Wow. I was a little girl at the time. Okay, so I'm glad to welcome you to the program today. This is Let's Talk with Chisom. We'll be taking a peek into Auntie's book. I wouldn't call it an autobiography, but that's more or less what it is, because when you write a story, that's an autobiography. What inspired this book? Guilty, but for grace.
Whew. Okay, the million-dollar question. Also, the very pertinent question that everybody asks. Guilty but for grace is not really an autobiography.
Okay.
And it is not really a memoir.
Okay.
It is a little bit of that. And it is a whole lot more, I think. What inspired my writing it was a simple call that I am in obedience to. The Lord wanted me to use the story of my experiences to preach the message of vulnerability and forgiveness. And what you will find in the book is stories, lots of stories that are from my young past, from the pasts of some friends, some families. And what I've done is bring out all the warts and all, like they say, the bad sides of what growing up was like for us. And the experiences that we had that were done sometimes in error, sometimes in clear understanding of what you were doing, but bad judgments all the same, that were brought to the fore. And it's presented in such a way that I hope it's presented in such a way that what people see or what people read is the honest recollections of somebody who is not afraid of the fact that they made mistakes, but recognizes that God forgives and that He actually forgives completely. So that was why I did this. I did this in obedience, like I say, to the Lord, and so that a lot of people can also tap into this forgiveness that I enjoy so much.
I can relate to what you're saying because I read the book. Wow, guys, this book. It took me like how many hours?
I didn't get it. You read it in one day.
It was actually less than a day because I was working and then I had things to do. I think I took it. I had like a 2 hours call, so I had several intervals. But I needed you to know when I finished the book. That was around past 12, right?
Yes.
The book is it's a good read. It's a good read. It's quite interesting.
Thank you very much.
I'm not really a book person. I would rather watch movies or probably take an e-course that you just watch it and they're teaching you than you have to read. So it was something like I was spellbound. So guys, you need to watch out for this book. Like it's on Amazon already, right?
Yes, it is.
So we'll put the link for the book on this video. So follow the link and get your copy. You don't want to. Oh, it's good. I don't want to overemphasize, but to be like a safe, right? Okay, so let's go back to the interview. Swansea, there were different characters in the book. A lot of them, they were quite intriguing. A lot of them. It came Derek, you have Stephanie, you have Michael, a lot of them, yes. And they sounded quite interesting because they all had, and there was something about the way you wrote the book. This is me digressing a little. The style, it was fun. I remember there was a particular feeling like, I want my money. I literally was laughing and people were like, why are you laughing? I said, you don't understand. This book is interesting. That part where you're like, I want my mommy. I could relate. It speaks to that small girl. It spoke to that small girl in me that just wants to be not a grown-up. This now they say adults with that scam. I just wanted, it made me okay. I was like, okay, there are days like that, and it's actually okay to feel that way. So, but I'm going to be asking you questions here and there. What are you laughing?
I'm laughing because there's so many things that you've said already that I need to even address.
Okay.
You said something about how you're not much of a reader.
Yeah.
Can I tell you a secret?
What?
Neither am I.
Oh
yes. I'm not very good with reading. That makes two of us.
Okay.
And the reason why I'm not is not necessarily because there are not great books out there.
Yeah.
It's because most times I don't have the patience to read, the way people write. So when I was writing this book, that was, furthest in my mind.
Yeah.
That how am I going to write a book that will encapsulate everything that I want to say in such a captivating way and yet simple way, and then send the message of the word of God also. So it was really interesting being able to get that across. So
it was really spicy.
I was scared when you told me that you read it under one day. I said, oh my goodness, maybe my book is not long enough.
No, it's about 132 pages if I'm not wrong. So when I said, I was like, whoa, one of those books. But as I started, I was like, I'm going to finish this book. I just balanced. I was like, this book, we are doing this. And I was actually surprised at myself, but it was a good read. It was very interesting.
Thank you very much.
Now, I said I was going to be asking about some characters in the book. But first of all, I want to ask, who is Nkili? Who is Nkili in the book?
Okay, so if you read the preface, I hope you did.
Yeah, I did.
Because the preface pretty much describes everything that I was feeling before, during, and after the writing of the book. And one of the things I said there was that maybe 70% of what I have written in the book may have been my own personal experiences.
Yeah.
And I also said, tongue in cheek, that I will never say which 70%.
Oh.
So it is 70% me.
Okay.
But I'll never tell you which 70%.
Because I was really curious, but I was reading at this point, I was like, okay, who is Nkili? So I think at some point I went back to try to tie two and two together, and I was not looking for the words that you read. Yes, like me and her, and I was trying to get.
And at a certain point, she disappeared.
Yes. Yes. I was like, I said I was going to ask you, who is Nkili? Okay. So
the point I was trying to make really was that Nkili is not important.
Okay.
The who is not important. The most important part of the book are the messages, or the message. If you can find the unifying message, because I think there is one. But even if you can't find the unifying message, then look for the messages. I think that the messages say everything that the story wants it to say, regardless of the who. You know, because it's about those experiences, it's about bad judgment, it's about, misguided priorities, it's about growing up, it's about being a child, it's about being adventurous, it's about owning up at the end of everything, to your mistakes, because that's where we are at now. Yeah. So it's so establishing all those were just so that we can come to where we're at now, where we can say, Lord, we made a mistake. Lord, forgive. And then you believe that he does forgive you. That's the message of the book.
Yeah. What part of that book was most difficult for you to share? Even though you said you were not going to tell us what parts the 70%, like you're not going to specify, but what parts? Because I know most of the book is your story. What parts? Is there something you want to say?
I think it's important to say it, even though it's not that important. But I think you can imagine, I'm sure, Chisom, that it must have been really hard regurgitating some of the things that were better left in the past.
Yeah.
And I think therein lies the dealing that the Lord was having with me. I think true repentance comes from that type of honesty, where you actually do not try to, sweep things under the rug. Instead you actually are saying, God, I am a sinner. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't deserve you to look at me in any manner. Pretty much like that story in the Bible where the first Pharisee was posing about all his alms that he gives to the poor. And that other guy was at one corner beating his chest and saying, Lord, forgive me, for I am a sinner. You don't come to that point until you have come to terms with the reality, the totality of what you did wrong. So this book made me go through some of the experiences of things I had done wrong.
Reliving them.
Reliving them like moment by moment.
Wow. Must have been hard.
I'll give you one. And God, please help me. One of them was the story about the person I met during my youth service that was a pastor.
Was it Michael?
I used wrong names anyway. I don't even know his name in the story, but so picture that now for a child of God.
Okay.
Because I totally now understand the import of what happened.
But let's get something clear.
Okay.
As at the time, you were not born again.
I wasn't born again at all. I was doing my youth service and having a lot of fun. And that's what I came to just to do, to enjoy.
To enjoy.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
So I met this person that will not leave me alone.
Okay.
And then I found out later that this person is a pastor. I did not know.
Wow.
His being a pastor was not my problem. It was his own problem as far as I was concerned.
Yeah.
But when I started writing now, something that happened, 30 years ago, I now found myself in his struggles, understood his struggles, and I was sorry for being the object of his struggles, really and honestly. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So that was one example of where I had to live through the moments again. And as I lived through those months, I could live them in his eyes, and then I could live them in God's eyes. So it was really a lot larger than just a fling that happened during my youth service year. All of a sudden, it was a really big thing. But God forgives.
Okay, so should I say that was the most difficult thing for you to share?
Well, you wanted an example.
No, I was a bit more.
I've admitted to one.
Okay. So let's move on. So hopefully you will share some other things. Yeah. So there was a particular experience. As I said, I'll be asking you just touch about the characters in the book. Jumoke. I was going to ask. These names are not real names, right?
Not even one of them.
Okay, so including in Kili, especially in Kili. Okay, so Jumoke's story. was a lot for me, in the sense that this is a girl that was nurtured in the house, from house to school. Basically, that was it. And then she had her freedom, in quotes. Then she went off. And it was like the freedom was short-lived because she died. For me, I felt someone reading the story might feel like, wasn't God partial? Because this is you 30 years down the line, and you know God's grace. I think that's where the grace of God really came in. In between the book, you pointed out the part of shame and sin and then grace speaking. So it was like this particular lady, her life was short-lived. And I don't know, I felt like it's called partial. I don't know.
Isn't that it's something that we always think about, isn't it? You know, but we know the answer to that, Chisom, don't we? Which is that God is sovereign. Do you understand? He is the sovereign Lord. He is the one that understands the whys and the wherefores. You know, we see in part, we prophesy in part. We are just part people, you know, but he's the one that sees everything. I won't, you know, even go into the whys of what happened to Jumoke during our youth service year. This Jumoke that we're talking about, you know, but it's really just understanding that it's really safer to be on the side of the Lord. Do you understand? It's just, you know, that's the message. You know, like I said, it always comes back to the message. And the message here is that it is just safer to be on the side of the Lord. Because even if you died as a young person, if you died on the side of the Lord, it's still okay. If you know what I mean. You know, so when we start exploring, when we start growing up, and this is really for teenagers and young people out there, you know, you begin to think that, oh, there is so much to do, so much to cover, so much to see. True, there are all those. But there is also the simple fact that, you know, you don't have all the time in the world and you don't know how much time you have. So that's why the Bible keeps talking about us living and numbering our days. You know, you have to know that you can go at any time, at any point in time. And so when you live your life, you have to think about life in that manner, that it could stop today, it could end right now. And if it did, what would happen? You know, so that's what I hoped that the message about Jumoke's story. Jumoke's story, by the way, is a combination of a lot of different people's stories, which I kind of, you know, created into something that I think flowed nicely. It was more like a creative story, but there are about 4 or 5 different people's experiences I put together, you know, to write that story, just to make the message come across, you know, the way I wanted it, and I hope it did.
Yeah, it did. It struck me in a very different way. Now, I know you might not understand, if you've not read the book, rather, you might not get what Jumoke's story was about. Jumoke was, as I said, a young girl that was cultured, normal, you know, young child growing up in the home, parents,
sheltered existence, grew up in a university setting, professor for dad, professor for mom, or I think, I can't remember, you know, but I, you know, really, you know, shielded you know, childhood.
And then the NYS is that time that she just
is what life can be.
Like, so this is what I've been missing, you know, and then, you know, one thing led to another. They were on a trip. I think the man was drunk, her boyfriend was drunk, and they had an accident. And you know, there are a lot of, I remember a particular musician when we were growing up, I don't want to call his name, he died in a similar experience. He was drunk and was driving, and then he died. You know, there are a lot of examples like that. And as you said, it doesn't really matter whether the person is young or old. What matters is that we are in God. And I think that's what the book was trying to point out. Now, that brings me to, I have so many questions at the same time, and I hope I don't miss them. I would ask you the question, the story of Stella. Now, something Stella said. Now, so just so that you guys will get where I'm coming from. Stella in the book was a lady that was, okay, when you actually digressed and talked about her story. You were talking about your experience, or Nkili's experience rather. And you digressed and you spoke about Stella's experience. And you said her water broke. Okay, Stella was pregnant in school, and then her water broke. And you said Nkili made fun of it. And she was like, get another bucket or something like that. So, but obviously her classmates or her classmates didn't know that she was pregnant until the time. But there was something that stood out for me in the book. She said she felt that it would just go away. I was like, seriously? How can things just go? Pregnancy doesn't just go away. Like,
So you'll be surprised at how people react to, trauma.
okay.
And the truth is that one is a true experience. I'm sure it doesn't sound like one.
As in-
Everything reported there happened exactly as I reported it.
Wow.
And you said her classmates didn't know. It wasn't even her class. Her roommates didn't know that she was pregnant. So it was just interesting. It was a major growing up curve for me, for instance. Because it was everything at once. I didn't even know that people could get pregnant in the first place. And there she was, not only pregnant, but having a baby. And how does that even happen? How do people get, to a point where they have babies? That's too much to take in, yes.
You were undergrad.
Yes, I was in my maybe second year or thereabouts when this happened.
How come you?
I'm telling you honestly, I think those are the things that you need to believe about the book. And that's part of why I wrote the book, because I want young people to know that there was a time when purity was actually purity, where we actually believed things. We actually didn't know certain things. Naivety was what we were. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And it was okay because almost everybody was naive.
Yeah.
But things have so changed. There are certain things I hear that 10-year-olds know or do, 12-year-olds know or do. And I'm like, I don't even understand that. I didn't know these things until I was about 30, So, yes, I didn't know that it was possible for somebody to just be pregnant like that.
Wow.
I didn't. So when the news came about her waters breaking, and that's the part you're referring to.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that meant. I'd never heard it in my life.
Okay.
I had never even been in a place where somebody who was pregnant was about to give birth. So what on earth was water breaking? And that's why the joke about go and get another bucket.
Exactly.
Because I was like, what are you talking about? Our water has broken. What do you think?
What's the big
Why are you even
deal?
talking about
Exactly.
this? Is this the first time water has broken? Because I wasn't thinking bucket breaking, water breaking.
Exactly.
So yeah, it was actually a true story. We went for parties together, we went for events together, we went to eat together, and we didn't know she was pregnant.
Wow. Yeah, so that's another character in the book, Derek. That's the one that I hope I'm getting the names right.
I hope you are too. Like I told you, the names don't really matter.
Yes, that's the one that you met during your youth service that was into drug, and then you met him in the market. Did you hear anything from him after that?
No.
He and Stephanie.
Stephanie again.
That's okay. Let me remind you because so Stephanie is the one that she was a half caste.
Oh, Stephanie.
Yeah. And she was everywhere. Everywhere. Like she was the biggest girl on campus, more or less. So have you heard anything about her?
Derek? No. No. Is it that I think he's okay now. I think he was rehabilitated. So I remember clearly because, like I said, he was a campus kid.
Yeah.
So I think he was rehabilitated or something. Stephanie is married.
Okay.
And she actually has children. She lives in London.
Yeah.
And she's okay. I don't know if she's born again or anything. I'm not in touch. But those people that you just still see on Facebook or something.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. So I think our viewers must have lost us at this point because we are in a different world. Okay, let me just tell the story about Derek in the book. Guys, you need to get this book. You need to get this book. You need to get this book. It's a whole lot. Trust me, it's a whole lot. So the Derek here was Nkili met him during her youth service, and he was a big boy. Those big boys in school. But years later, was it years? Years later, or some moments later, I'm not sure how long.
No, Derek was actually university, not youth service.
Okay.
Yes, he was somebody that we all grew up in the university with. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
so when I met him just after youth service.
Wow.
In the market.
In the market, and he was almost naked, like madman because of drugs.
Yes.
So I'm going to spice things up a little. There's this part of the book that's true. Remember, that's true. That's true. It was really something, you know. I don't know if I should.
Maybe you can talk about it. Okay, you brought it up.
Okay, that's true. Okay, so I think if I remember correctly, you said you came into town, you came into Lagos, and you just decided to just take a stroll and just feel yourself. And no, but we all do these things.
Yeah, two people are waiting for the story.